All right.
And a pen and paper, just in case you ask me anything technical, Anton.
Oh, you won't get any technical questions from me, Sheena. I'm not nearly smart enough to know that. I just want to know some of your attitudes and your belief systems toward leadership in life. Now, today, team, if you're listening in podcast land or if you're watching this on any of our channels, we've got the lovely Sheena Trumble from Thermoview, based out of Adelaide. And I'll let Sheena tell you what Thermoview do in a minute. But just before we do that, Sheena, just tell us, just for everyone out there in social media land, what's the Sheena Trumble story? I know it a little bit, but what don't I know about you?
Oh, Anton, I don't think there's a lot you don't know about me, really. I've been in business for too long. Yeah, too long. Probably 40 years, I reckon. Nearly 35 years. 35 anyway.
And you've
nearly
had
40.
Serious business success too. You've grown some businesses significantly.
I've got a fair few under my belt that I'm very proud of, to be honest with you.
Good on you.
So I spent 25 years in transport and logistics.
Right.
Which was a great experience for me, great learning life curve.
Right.
Then moved to Australia in 2005 and moved into the service industry, working for Wormold.
Oh, yeah.
Had a couple of years doing that, and then moved on to Itron, which I'll be honest, probably was my dream job, and travelled the world. Beautiful, just saw some wonderful sights, met some amazing people, and it was a really good life experience. And then latterly, the last 4 years, I've been running Thermoview.
Good. And
that's me in a nutshell.
And just before we jumped online, you were just saying how happy you were with the growth of Thermoview and the fact that the business has gone really well. Why don't you give Thermoview a plug now, just for anyone out there, in case I've got anyone electrical, for example, on the call?
Well, I have to give you a smile, Anton, and I think this is where you and I actually come from. What can I say about Thermoview other than, and I think you know it's coming, we save lives, protect property, and keep business moving every day. And that's all we do in a nutshell. So we're out and about all day, saving lives, protecting property, and keeping business moving. And more so now, we're starting to get a pretty good response from the insurance industry.
Great.
We seem to be getting a fair bit of backing and support from the insurance industry with a view to them encouraging people to have a thermographic survey or an infrared survey, for those that don't know what thermography is, either during the life of the building, at the beginning of the building, or when there's a refit or a change. So it's making a big difference. It's good.
Is it just those times, or is it like if I haven't had a thermography check or an infrared scan of my switchboards for, say, 4 or 5 years, like who knows, there's not a hot joint in there. Why wouldn't we call Thermoview and get you to come and have a look at it?
You would call Thermoview and get us to have a look. And to be honest with you, Anton, it isn't just about I haven't had it done for 4 or 5 years. Yeah. And I often recall a story whereby there was a brand new piece of equipment. I put it on LinkedIn the other day. There was a brand new piece of equipment that had actually been installed 3 weeks before by the electrician.
Wow.
And it was a category 1, level 1 fault. And we basically shut the whole thing down. And it was an iconic building in Adelaide. We shut the whole thing down to make sure that the electrical company came back in and replaced it. It would have been a fire.
Wow.
So anybody who doesn't see the value or the benefit in thermography, feel free to get in touch with Thermoview. Oh, we're more than happy to show you. And we've got lots of really good case studies and stories.
Yeah. And when I put this on the social channels, I'll actually put a link to Thermoview as well.
Fantastic. Yes, please.
Hopefully we can get the word out there and maybe get, some people to try and save their lives or save their property, because you never know what you're going to find once you open up a switchboard, Sheena, right?
Oh, Anton, I have to be honest, I am giving a presentation to the insurance industry on Thursday. Yeah. So I've spent a bit of time together putting a PowerPoint presentation together. And I think I've scared myself, to be honest, with the amount we find and the amount we see that we take for granted day to day. It's a real eye-opener, and that's whether it be new equipment, old equipment, and some of them are, and with your electrical background, yes, we look for thermals, but we only use electricians, so the electricians will actually highlight anything that's outside of code.
There you go.
So we're in your panel and we'll tell you the health of your panel completely.
Wow. Because back in the day, Sheena, and maybe it still happens, just while we're still on business, there would be people out there who just know how to drive a thermographic camera, and that's all they do. They're not electricians per se. They don't know what they're looking for. They're just looking for a hot joint, right?
That's right. And the people that know how to use a thermographic camera probably don't know how to drive a thermographic camera, if that makes sense. The two really should go hand in hand.
Yeah.
If you're looking at mechanical, then to my mind, you should have a mechanical background.
Yeah.
Electrical, you should be of an electrical background.
And I tend to agree, because I remember as an apprentice, Sheena, we actually used to have to go with the thermographers because we were electricians, so that we could actually help them. And if they found something, you know, we could fix it. Even though they were electricians too, but we were the site electricians, so we were there on the job.
Probably 90% of our work, we are escorted by the site electrician. Yep. And they do exactly that. So they'll remove the escutcheon plate. If we find a fault and they can fix the fault, we'll scan the fault and then scan the fact that it's been fixed. Yep. So they'll actually get a report that says, this is what we found and this is how it's been fixed.
Nice.
But I do feel, and history's taught me over the last 4 years, if you're expecting somebody to look at a panel and understand what's going on in that panel, they need to know that panel. So you would understand, there may be something running at 80 degrees, but if the cable's rated to 300 degrees, it's not a problem.
That's right.
You wouldn't know that unless you had the background. So it's important, and we do pride ourselves. And to be honest with you, the biggest thing we pride ourselves on is being independent. We don't do any fixes at all. Wow. We come in, we're like an auditor really. We'll come in, we'll tell you what's wrong. We'll guide you through what needs to be done. You get it fixed, we come back free of charge, and away you go.
And if they come back to you, Sheena, and said, look, you know, we're a footy stadium and we don't have electricians on board, you know, your Sparkies could go back in and fix it for them though too, couldn't they?
We wouldn't.
You don't go back and fix it at all, right?
No, we have the ability to be able to use subcontractors that we use to go and do it, right. But we choose not to do the fixes, Anton. And I think the benefit to that means that, you know, when you're using Thermoview, we're telling you what we see. It's not to our benefit. Beautiful. It's not to make us funny. Wow. It's upfront honesty that says, look, you're trusting us to be specialists in what we do. We don't want to fix product. We'd really rather tell you what's wrong, let you fix it, come back and confirm. And Anton, there's a hospital here in town where the guy had 5 faults. We went back and he'd fixed 2 of the faults, believing all 5 had been fixed. The electrician had fixed them, but hadn't fixed them properly. So we've had to go back on 4 separate occasions. Only because we see more than an electrician. It doesn't make the electrician wrong, and you must appreciate that. It's tightening of screws and crimping and different bits and pieces. The electrician doesn't see what we see.
That's right. It's all about the joint itself and how the joint connects a lot of the time. It's that resistance and that interface.
That's it. So, the flow of energy.
Good on you, girl. Oh, thank you so much, and thank you for sharing your Thermoview story. So tell me, last time we sort of met was probably 2 years ago up here in Gladstone, if that, actually maybe 12, 18 months ago. You were coming up and you were growing the business. So tell me, what has been what's the big thing for you when it comes to growing a business, Sheena? What's the secret? You've done this for years. I know there's probably not a silver bullet, but what's the big thing that you would tell any young entrepreneur?
Passion.
Passion.
Believe in what you do.
Right.
Believe in what you do. If you have something and you truly believe that it's the best for everybody, your passion comes through naturally.
Yes. Because you can't.
Having spent years in transport and logistics, people would look at transport logistics and think, you're not selling anything. Because you're not. What you're doing is you're giving a solution of moving something from A to B. So when you're actually selling, you're not selling a product that somebody can look, touch or feel. You're actually getting them to invest in you, knowing that you're going to give them the right solution. Nice. If you believe in what you're doing, that's easy, Anton.
Oh, I agree, Sheena. So there's sort of a passion. Does the passion fuel the belief, or does the belief fuel the passion? I suppose they go hand in hand. I just heard 2 words in passion and belief. Belief in your product and passion for it.
Exactly right. If you believe what you're doing, not just in selling, but in life, if you believe that you're doing something for the right reason, you're invested in it. And yes, you become passionate about it. And I think everybody I've met over the years will tell you one of the key things about me is I'm passionate about making a difference.
Absolutely. And you are. and you are. And when I first met you, I thought you were Xena, the Princess Warrior, because do you remember how you described it? When I asked you one day, we were having a quick coaching session, and I love that the first coaching session we did, you had a meeting straight after it by memory, and you had to some of your languaging around, which went really, really well. And I remember speaking to you that day, so that was nice to see that went well. But as part of that process, we were talking through Sheena and what your story was, and I said, "How would you describe yourself?" Do you remember what you said? I'll never forget.
I can't remember the exact words, Anton.
And I'm going to preface this by saying that I probably didn't know you that well then, so I probably would have believed you when you said these two words. And when I asked someone else about you, they said the same two words. I don't believe this is true, but you remember you said, "I'm a ball buster."
A ball breaker.
Ball breaker. That's right.
A ball breaker, yes.
I thought,
a ball breaker.
I'm a little bit scared here working with this lady. So, yeah, right. And has that come through in some of your business development, do you think? Like, what's that mean? And I don't think you are a ball breaker personally. I've seen the softer side of you and the gentle and the compassionate as well as passionate side.
Yes. I think at the end of the day, it's an exterior. It's a coat.
Right.
It's a coat that's got me through. And without wishing to push any buttons, having started in transport and logistics when I was 18 and being one of the only women in it, you suddenly have to be a very different person, and you have to have a tough exterior. And going from transport and logistics into fire, and from fire into metering, and metering into infrared. There aren't too many women in the industries I've been in the last 35 years.
That's right.
And the reality is you have to be hard,
Right.
because if you're soft, you're going to get pushed.
Yeah, right. Okay, good on you.
But there's a difference between being hard and being fair, and as you say, compassionate.
Yeah, that's right. You've got to be a bit of compassion and I know you bring that as well. So I know you well enough to know you bring both sides. You bring that tough exterior, but you also bring this caring, thoughtful, feeling type experience to the process as well. So in saying that, given that side of things, Sheena, the feeling, that's, I suppose, the caring. So you're a strong leader. So one of the things that we do, obviously, as you know, is leadership training and leadership growth and leadership development. For young leaders out there, so let's say there's a young lady on here who was where you were at, say, 21, in a tough industry. She's got a tough exterior on, but now she's gone from, say, managing some transport. Now she's got to manage a team of people. So now she might be the admin manager or something. She's got to lead people, not just a female, a male too. What would you tell them about leadership? What's the Sheena Trumble School of Leadership? What have you learned?
The biggest thing I've learned, and I don't know if it's an age thing, the biggest thing I've learned is empathy. When you start to lead people and you want your team to work with you and understand where you're at, you have to have empathy. You have to have the ability to be able to look in their shoes at what their problems are and relate to their problems, rather than it's my problem and this is the way it happens. You have to understand people, and you have to be empathetic to different people's circumstances, needs and wants.
Wow. And I agree. I'm just writing as we talk, so I don't miss it.
That's okay.
And everyone's different, Sheena. Everyone comes to this with their own belief system, with their own, I suppose, baggage in some ways. And other people come up with a really positive attitude and they just want to change the world, and you've sort of got to go along and help them, mould them, and let them be their creative self too, and let them be authentic, let's say, is a word we use a lot. Because you want to encourage.
You're right. You want to encourage people. You want to plant the seed of what it is you're there to do. You need to make sure that you surround yourself with the people that are, I won't even say like-minded or similar, because I think some of my best employees have been completely different to me.
Good.
But I think it's about getting the common goal. So if everybody knows what the end goal is, then they'll pull together to get there.
Beautiful.
But you have to understand, and it's like if you're on a tug of war. Yeah. If you have 5 people on the end of a rope, those 5 people have to be pulling to get the other team over.
Absolutely.
But if one of them's weak, the other person has to be strong. And that's where the key is. So where I have some amazing strengths, I've also got some weaknesses, but what I look to do is look for other people's strengths and weaknesses and try and meet their weaknesses with my strengths. And you do that within a team.
Wow.
So you can have a team of very different individuals, but if you pick the right strengths and the right weaknesses, it becomes a team, Anton.
Wow, good on you, Sheena. I love that. So there's a little bit of fit for role there too, and fit for purpose to a degree with individuals.
Definitely.
Make sure that we've got people working to their strengths.
Yes.
Because if
you can put somebody into something, number one, they may not have the passion or the drive, it's not going to fit. But if you play somebody to their strengths and it's a strength that they can show, most people are proud to show you what they do when they're good at it.
Can't wait. And love it and beat their chest when they have and want to, because one of the reasons they're doing it is for that reason. That's right.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Well, come on, a bit of Leighton Hewitt, you know. And at the end of the day, when you're a strong leader like you are, they're actually doing it for that reason, so that you appreciate them a little bit more, which you do, and you go, great work, well done. And it's not just about being wanky and just saying a good job. It's actually about, appreciating why they've done it and the effort that they put in and being sincere with your thanks and your praise and recognition, right?
Yep, and you do have to. You have to praise people for what they do, good and bad, because sometimes people make mistakes.
Yeah.
We all make mistakes, Anton, and you can't criticise somebody for a mistake, because that's how people learn on their journeys. And as a leader, not as a manager or a boss, but as a leader, you've got to be there to help people.
Oh, nice. To support them. You know, we're not
exactly right.
We're not at the top of the hill pulling them up. We're at the bottom of the hill pushing them up, giving them that up. What can I do for you? How's
exactly.
How are you? Are you okay? What else do you need to do a good job in your role? I love that question. Great stuff, girl. Great stuff. So that's leadership. Now, and I said the other topic we're going to talk about today is life. Life. I love this one. We're going to get a bit deeper now, because we're going to jump outside the workspace just for a sec. So I've done a lot of work recently about in the happiness space, Sheena, trying to understand this whole thing called happiness and happiness in leaders and happiness in people. And are you happy at work and are you happy at home and all that sort of stuff. And I just wonder, the question is really around, are you happy? And I know that's broad, but what makes you happy? What makes you happy at work and what makes you happy at home? And the home stuff's easy, being with hubby and the dogs and all that sort of stuff. But, a bit, and the grandkids, but maybe a little bit deeper if you could for us.
I think, to be honest, Anton, when I look at my career and I look at the different roles and hopefully young entrepreneurs and people wishing to make their way in life may learn from me. I've always given my life, I've always given my work and my career priority. And yes, I'll admit it, I have to be honest with you. I went back to work when my daughter was 18 months old. I worked long hours. I worked arduous to get where I wanted to be. Yeah. That hasn't changed. It didn't change. Right. My last job, I think I told you, I would travel overseas. I would fly out on a Saturday lunchtime and not fly back until Sunday the week after, living out of a case. I've worked really hard to get where I have. Was I happy doing it? At the time, if you talk about happiness and personal happiness, at the time of doing the roles I'd done, yes, I believed I was happy because I was happy in my job and life was great and I was earning really good money. And when you're earning money and you're traveling the world, it looks absolutely amazing. And you're happy, or you believe you're happy. Happiness is in a moment. Happiness isn't, do you know what I mean? It's not a given, because you can be happy one moment and unhappy the next.
Yeah.
But to sit where I am today, from a work-life balance, I genuinely believe that it's come with age. I now have what I would call the perfect work-life balance. I have everything I want in my life. And you're right, I have a wonderful husband, a beautiful daughter. I have my dog. I work out more than I should. So personally, I'm really happy. Professionally, I'm really happy because, as you said, I can sit back and look at my achievements. I can sit back and look where I've been. But if somebody were to say, where would you go in search of happiness? The only place you can search happiness is in your heart.
Absolutely, I agree. It's internal. You've got to look inside, haven't you, Sheena?
If you're not happy inside, you're not happy outside.
Oh, for sure. And it shows.
Yes. And that's when you fail.
And we all know people, Sheena, that can't hide that. And it's called congruent. It's when you say one thing and, you know, you behave another way. Yeah, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy. You know, that's not happiness. That's your body language showing up. Your beliefs and your body language are two totally different things. Yeah, no, I love that. And
happiness to me comes from getting up in the morning, knowing that during the course of that day, I've done the very best I can, not just for me, but for everybody around me. And when I go to bed at night, I will have achieved something, albeit just to make somebody smile or to do a deal or to a kindness or whatever. It's to go to bed every day and say, I've done that today. I've achieved that. Because then you wake up happy the next morning, wondering what you can achieve next.
Nice. I like it. And you give yourself a pat on the back for the effort that you've put in, and you reward yourself. And you're not kicking yourself because you missed the deal. You're actually giving yourself a pat on the back for the one you got, not the one that got away. You know, it's really about self-improvement.
And to be honest with you, Anton, I think the key is, and I when I interview people, I have a set of particular questions.
Yeah.
And they're around happiness and success and everything else. And there's two things I think that are contagious. One is happiness and the other is success. Success breeds success. Happiness breeds happiness.
Absolutely. I'm with you, girl. I'm with you. And I've always been lucky that I've sort of shown up fairly happy most of the time. And I worked out fairly whenever I did that if you get up and bed on the right side of get out on the right side of the bed and you have some happy thoughts for the day, and, you know, most of your days go pretty well. Yeah, you have some shitty times, but, you know, It's not all beer and Skittles, but most of the time you can sort of reframe it and say, well, you know, I'm enjoying life. Sheena, that's fantastic, girl. So where to from here? What's next? Once Thermo, like you know, you're going to keep growing this business?
It's my wish to continue to grow the business. As I say, I've made some big inroads with the insurance industry at the moment. I'm actually spending a bit of time at the moment with the thermography industry as well, rather than just Thermoview, but actually trying to get out there to talk about thermography, not just to talk about Thermoview, because I think it's a very underrated and understated industry. And I think we now need to start talking about legislation. We need to start talking about licensing. Those things can't happen necessarily as Thermoview, but they have to happen collectively in the industry, with insurance people, with key stakeholders, with thermography companies, with government. When you look at the fire down in Melbourne last week, Anton, you know my thoughts on fire and as in fire protection, and I still cannot believe that a fire panel has to be looked at once a month, every month in Australia, to check that it actually works, which is amazing, and it's great. And every year you have to go and blow some smoke in some smoke detectors to make sure it works. But nowhere in legislation does it say the fire panel, the electric supply that goes to that is checked. It's not legislated. All that's relied upon is a battery. You tell me how many battery manufacturers will give you a guarantee or a warranty. You can't tell me whether there's any charge in that battery, and you won't know until the fire goes off. And when we're talking about some of the cladding we've got in some of the buildings here, similar to Grenfell, it's crazy. And that's where my passion's starting to come out, because I'd like to be able to make a difference, and I'd like people to understand what thermography can do, and not just for Thermoview, but thermography as an industry. We can check your board. We can tell you whether there's a problem.
I love your work, Sheena, because I actually noticed you on LinkedIn. You've actually started becoming a bit more, maybe you always have. I think I'm just noticing it a bit more lately. You're becoming a bit of a thought leader in the industry. So, you know, that passion's actually coming through, and there's a bit of a Thermoview push, but it's more of a thermography push than a Thermoview push. So it's really nice to see. Because it's coming from the right place.
And to be honest with you, you're right. I probably haven't pushed the social media buttons historically. And look at my age, for heaven's sake. It's something that you have to learn.
In your 30s.
As we sit here today, I think it's fantastic. I put something up on LinkedIn, and to be honest with you, Anton, we're getting like 10,000 views. But it's not just talking about Thermoview. It's about, as you say, it's the passion of what we do, and that's where I think we need to go as an industry. It's a long struggle, but for the future, we've just launched My Asset View, which we have in 5 blue chip companies. 3 of the 5 are global companies. It's making a big difference. And again, we're very lucky. It's still a world first. We need to invest a little bit more. I have to be honest. There's a little bit more money needs to be spent on it. But I would have said within the next 6 months, watch this space.
Wow, good on you, Sheena. So good to see, because we spoke about that a couple of years ago, and we were sort of trying to understand what that sort of looked like, what your process was for getting that out there. So, and to hear that it's been successful is just amazing. Well done. Go you.
It's going really, really well. I have to be honest with you, and like I say, it's got the potential to go significantly bigger. Right. But I don't know. I suppose I have goals. As I said, you get up in the morning, you go to bed at night, and you reflect on what you've done during the day. You get up in the morning and decide where you want to go. Yeah. I've always had the goal to get $5 million in 5 years. Wow. And when I worked at Itron, I think it was 5 billion in 5 years. So 5 seems to be the lucky name.
And are you tracking?
And I think we'll do it here. Yeah. Sorry.
Well done. Good.
I think we'll do it here.
Well done. Go you, girl. Go you. All right. Well, look, let's start wrapping up. I just want a big thank you for coming on and joining us.
Thank you.
Oh, it's a pleasure, girl. You'll see this, and you know me. I'm a little bit of a social media nut, whatever the right word is, or I wouldn't say whore, but a social media nutter. I get out there every day and do a bit. So we'll put this up on YouTube, and we'll put this up on probably a link to Facebook, and I'll make sure we got a link to Thermoview there, and a massive thanks for your time today. And
can you do me a favour first? Can you play with Photoshop?
I don't need to, Sheena. I don't need to.
Have a little play with Photoshop before you put it anywhere.
All right, I'll try. How's that? Good on you, girl.